Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Karish, and I serve as the marketing director for St. Luke's Hospital Koontz Center for Advanced Breast Cancer. It is my pleasure today to welcome to St. Luke's our friends from METAvivor Research and Support. As many of you know, METAvivor is the nation's leading nonprofit organization raising funds specifically for research for stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. And just yesterday, they announced that they are going to be awarding $2.35 million worth of grant funding this year alone. So, bravo for that. Today, we have with us two METAvivor board members, Patrick Quinn and Kelly Davis. Kelly serves as the social media director for METAvivor. She was diagnosed with early stage breast cancer in her 20s and stage 4 in her early 30s. Patrick serves as vice president and director of fundraising for METAvivor. His wife was diagnosed with stage 4 at age 36. Patrick and Kelly serve as co-chairs for the Northwest Arkansas Metscarade, which is the #1 fundraising event for metastatic breast cancer research in the country. And since the event was founded in 2016, they have raised $880,000. Yeah, great. And I've never attended myself, but what I can see from photos online, it looks like it is a heck of a party. So we're glad to have you both here. Also joining us, of course, is Dr. Timothy Pleward. Dr. Pleward is the medical director for St. Luke's Cancer Institute. Under his leadership, St. Luke's launched its innovative Koontz Center for Advanced Breast Cancer in 2016. It is one of the only centers in the nation solely dedicated to treating women with metastatic breast cancer. Our unique care model is really changing the way that women live with metastatic breast cancer, improving outcomes and quality of life for our patients. So today's event really brings together the nation's leader in treatment with the nation's leader in advocacy to talk about the latest advancements in metastatic breast cancer. So with that, I will turn it over to our panel of experts. Go ahead, you can just speak from your seat if you want.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. It's really great to see, and it's great to have METAvivor here. This is really an opportunity to just have an open dialogue about metastatic breast cancer, what's happening, where the field is going, and there's some really exciting new therapies on the horizon. We continue to focus on research to improve the outcomes, and there's another metastatic breast cancer conference that we'll be presenting at next week at Johns Hopkins. We're actually excited about sharing some of our data from our first 2 years experience. You guys want to say anything?
Is that your spiel?
I don't know. Yeah?
Patrick has notes, so...
Oh, yes. Patrick has a speech.
Do you want? I don't have a speech. How long do you want me to talk for, Emily? 5 minutes?
5 minutes?
5 minutes, okay. That sounds good. So Emily introduced me a little bit, and I'll talk to you a little bit about METAvivor and a little bit about my story as well. So in 2016, my wife and I were sitting out on the back patio. I had just experienced the best year in real estate that I'd ever had. I was the #1 real estate agent down in Arkansas with Coldwell Banker. And we had a fabulous summer. We'd gone to Cancun. We had gone to Minnesota to see my nephew and his wife get married, and had also gone down to Florida. It was a really fantastic year. And we were sitting out on the back patio, and Lisa said, "I feel a lump in my breast." And a long story short, we went through the whirlwind that people go through after getting diagnosed with breast cancer and found out that she was metastatic probably about 4 weeks after she had initially got diagnosed. And on top of all that, we did genetic testing and found out that she carries the BRCA2 gene mutation, which of course gives the 2 children that we have a 50% chance of carrying that mutation. During that time frame we were looking at, we found out, of course, what everybody finds out when they're looking for about metastatic breast cancer, that it's not good, and the median life expectancy is approximately 36 months. And we also found out that research was very limited for patients or for prolonging patients' lives. We had doctors tell us this. We need more research money, we need more research. And then we did some research, and yes, we need more research money. So fast forward a little bit, and I'm gonna let Kelly talk about some of our events and stuff like that, but we got involved with METAvivor. We found out about them really through Kelly as being a leading advocacy. Prior to social media coming on board, metastatic patients had very little voice in community. They were primarily ostracized or not ostracized, but I would probably go that far and say, yeah, you're ostracized for having metastatic breast cancer and ignored and kind of left just to die. And social media brought to the forefront how devastating the disease is and that we do have a voice. So I started advocating for METAvivor, and I got nominated to the board in 2016 as a board member. There's one other non-metastatic board member whose wife had also had metastatic breast cancer. She since has passed away. And then this year I was nominated as the vice president and director of fundraising. And before I forget, I do want to acknowledge Terlisa Shepard right over here. She is another board member for METAvivor, a 17-year metastatic breast cancer patient, so thriver. So one of the things that METAvivor focuses on is getting research treatments for the already metastasized patients. We've had a lot of awareness that's gone on for the last 30 years, and that has not really furthered the longevity of metastatic patients. 30 years ago, the median life expectancy was about 18 months, and right now it's around 36 months. I think that when Dr. Pleward talks about some of the drugs that are coming out right now, I think we'll see those increasing quite a bit more than what we're seeing right now is the numbers that are being stated as 36 months. So METAvivor focuses on that already metastasized patient. If we can control stage 4, there will be no fear, or certainly less fear, from the early stage community. If we can make metastatic breast cancer a chronic manageable disease instead of the current terminal one that it is for a majority of the patients, for 97 to 99% of the patients, there will not be the fear from the early stage community about getting breast cancer. So why METAvivor? What makes us different than other organizations? People can think of a handful of organizations off the bat that talk about research funding. First of all, we give 100% of general donations. So if you go to metavivor.org today and make a donation, 100% of that is going to go toward research. In addition, we allow 5% overhead from the research community. That's the grants that we provide to them gets 5% overhead. That is unheard of in the research world. Typically, we're looking at 45 to 55%. So, earlier this year, the DoD awarded a institution $4 million for metastatic breast cancer research. Of that, 50% of it, roughly, was taken immediately for overhead. That's not what we believe is the best thing to do for money on and disease that has been thoroughly underfunded for the last several decades. The second thing is, of course, and I know there's a lot of organizations that do this, peer review process. So we've got 3 members that sit on our scientific peer review committee. In addition to those peer reviewers, we also have metastatic patients advocates that sit on those peer review so that they can gauge the impact of a drug on the community that we're trying to get the research for. So, that's giving the metastatic patient a voice on, is this drug going to be impactful for me now, or is it going to be impactful for the future generations? So in addition to doing those things, METAvivor is working on awareness. We do several things throughout the year. One of them is our C2C campaign, which is the METAvivor RV that we have out front. People, of course, can go out in there and take photos of that. That goes across the country throughout the year, and we meet up with patients and supporters and talk about what metastatic breast cancer is. I think if you look at the statistics, about 50 to 60% of people don't even know what metastatic breast cancer means. It's not a common term that people hear a lot of. The other thing that we just finished up with at the beginning of October is the Stage 4 Stampede, which is when we go to Washington, D.C., and we advocate at the representatives and senators' offices asking for additional funding for metastatic breast cancer through the NIH or the Department of Defense or the National Cancer Institute. And in addition to that, this year we asked for two other things. Bipartisan bills makes it easy for everybody. We don't go in there trying to make it hard on anybody. One of the bills was for the Metastatic Breast Cancer Access to Care Act. Currently, right now, if you get diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, you have a 2-year waiting period to get on Medicare. So for some of the population, triple negative metastatic breast cancer patients, the current numbers are 9 to 12 months average survival time. They don't even get that opportunity to get on Medicare, and most of them are probably not going to, or a lot of them, if they're like my wife, are going to stop working altogether. So that's looking promising from the national level. The other thing is the Oral Parity Act, allowing less cost for the drugs, and of course for the insurance companies to cover those oral parities. So Kelly, who's on Faslodex right now, currently there's a drug coming out that will be the same as in oral. So if you don't want the 3-inch needles that are injected in your rear, you can take the oral. There's two at the same time. You can do those. So, so we've got those kind of things. We use sponsorships for those events. So for the Stage 4 Stampede and for the C2C campaign, those are sponsorships that come from pharmaceutical companies. They don't necessarily like to give us money for research because they may be funding a competitor, right? But they will give us funding for campaigns. So that's what we use for operations costs and stuff like that. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kelly. And if people have questions about METAvivor, I'll answer those in the Q&A.
Excellent. Do we have time? Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you all for being here today. Can you hear me? Is my mic on?
Should be picking up that one.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
All right. So I'm Kelly. I am 36 years old, and I am a 4-year metastatic breast cancer patient. I've had breast cancer since 2008, so I didn't realize that you could get breast cancer in your 20s, let alone that you could, do everything right and still end up dying from breast cancer. So I was very shocked to find that it had spread to my bones in 2014. I went into a really deep depression. I literally couldn't cope with what was happening to me, and eventually became suicidal. And I was put into an institution for a while. They didn't know what to do with me. I mean, I was healthy overall, but couldn't get out of my mind, I'm going to die from this disease. I was a survivor. This is not supposed to happen to me. When I was getting the help that I needed to in rehab, essentially, I had an idea. And I'm like, you know what? I'd found METAvivor before I went into rehab, and I knew what METAvivor was doing. I knew that METAvivor was special. And I wanted to have some sort of gala for METAvivor, and then it hit me. Metastatic masquerade. And I had no idea how to plan a gala. I had no idea even the first thing about it. So I decided, I'm just going to start posting about it on social media and see what I can find. I'm still part of this under 40 metastatic support group online. And I'd become very vocal and outspoken about, what organizations are not doing for metastatic breast cancer patients. And frankly, this support group that Lisa, Patrick's wife, was part of, I scared the crap out of Lisa, according to her. And she would shy away from me because I was so vocal about it. When she saw me posting about this, masquerade idea, she's like, "There's no way that Kelly lives anywhere near me." Lo and behold, we live 20 minutes apart. I mean, what are the odds of that happening, right? And at this point, I was actually mailing out to ask me about MBC pins that I had printed out with a METAvivor ribbon on it. When you guys see the METAvivor ribbon, we have some cards back here. We'll show you. We have some swag as well. And I wanted to start a conversation about metastatic breast cancer because I wanted people to understand it was different, and I wanted people to know what I didn't know when I was first diagnosed. So Patrick, and I and Lisa, my then husband Zach, met, and we had dinner. And Patrick brought a couple $100 and said, "Buy more pins. I believe in what you're doing, and we want to get involved in this Metascrade idea." So Patrick and Lisa have a fantastic community of people that rallied around them when she was diagnosed, about a year after I was diagnosed. Patrick is a real estate agent. Lisa is a hometown girl from Springdale, Arkansas. She's been born and raised there. She was a teacher and has a massive community of people that really, really care and want to support. So together, within 4 months, we planned the first Metascrade that happened in April of 2015. And 2016. We raised $137,000 on our first event. And it was completely unbelievable because people, breast cancer, we know breast cancer, whatever, get out of here. When they found the reality of what metastatic breast cancer is and how poorly funded it is, they walked out with their jaws on the floor. That's actually why 4029 is here with us today, covering our story, because they supported us the entire time. So we really have rallied a tremendous amount of grassroots support in the area. The next Metascrades raised more hundreds of thousands of dollars, and as Emily said earlier, we've raised probably more now, almost a little over $900,000 in Northwest Arkansas. People, like this is not Kansas City. Like this is honestly, we need a Metascrade in Kansas City. So if anybody wants to start one, please see us after this, right? In all seriousness. We have been elated to see the Metascrade concept spread all across the country, much like cancer, but in a good way, not in a bad way. From Minneapolis to South Florida to Orlando to Chicago, the Triangle area of North Carolina, Pittsburgh, Las Vegas is talking about having one as well. And those Metascrade events have raised almost $1 million as well altogether. So this really is becoming the premier metastatic breast cancer fundraising event. And to think that it started, out of a broken mind, that, where I was 4 years ago, it is just completely unbelievable and so humbling that you can come back from the brink of something like that and literally, being in more danger from your mental state than the cancer itself. And I know that St. Luke's is doing a great job from a mental health perspective, because that is so critical that we get that support. I got a tattoo last week when I was in New York City speaking at a metastatic event. This was my mantra when I got to a better place in my head. I had to ruminate this, and it says "not today," and acknowledges that what, I may die from metastatic breast cancer one day, but today's not that day, and tomorrow is not looking so good either. So this is our legacy. This is Lisa's legacy. This is the legacy of people that are living with this disease. And I could not be happier to partner with St. Luke's organization. And I've gotten to know, Tim and his wife Heather on a personal basis. I've stayed at their house. I've met their kids. These people really believe in the mission that they're, that they're working. This is not just, hey, this is a great way to make money. Like, this is something that you walk the talk. And I cannot thank you enough for that. Relationships are really what has built this entire, empire that we are creating here. But it doesn't get any better unless people are living longer. And that's why we do what we do. That's why METAvivor is funding this research. And, like with the grants that were just awarded, maybe the Davis Quinn grant is going to fund something that's going to be meaningful for you folks, or for somebody out there, because the metastatic family of diseases, are so widespread, and maybe what drug that works for somebody is not going to work for somebody else. Research into the precision medicine is really what's going to get us there. So thank you for being here today. Navigate to the METAvivor Facebook page before you leave today and like it. We have added, I think, 10,000 Facebook likes over the past couple of months. We want to get, to the 100,000 like mark if we can get there. So awesome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you guys for coming. So I just want to talk a little bit about research, because obviously METAvivor is raising and funding a lot of research, and that's also critical to our mission in the Koontz Center. One of the challenges is in the pace of which we move research forward is that nationally 3 to 5% of women with metastatic breast cancer participate in a clinical trial, and the number one reason is that nobody has asked them to participate in a clinical trial. So part of our goal is that for every woman at every point where there's a change in therapy, that we have a clinical trial as an option. And so we've been very strategic and systematic about going out and finding what is emerging from a translational standpoint into the clinic so that we have the opportunity for women to participate in clinical trials. And so over the 2 years that we've been doing this, we have gradually ramped up our portfolio of clinical trials, which now numbers 16, specifically for metastatic breast cancer. And we just looked at our data at 2 years, and our participation rate in clinical trials is 24%. So 1 out of 4 women are participating in a clinical trial, compared to the national average of 3 to 5%. So in my mind, that's still not enough. It should be 100% because it's a disease that's not curable. And so everybody who has the opportunity should consider participating in a clinical trial. And on the other side of the equation, we're working to try and make it easier for women to participate in clinical trials. There are so many barriers that are regulatory, that are built into these protocols that end up excluding patients from participating for reasons that really don't impact the outcome of the research. And so we're trying to work to get those eliminated. And the other component that Kelly alluded to is really the comprehensive care. Those of you who've been to the center know that the first visit is a half-day event because not only do you see a physician, you see a nutritionist, a psychologist, a physical therapist to assess your exercise capacity, a social worker to address the issues that may impact your ability to get your care. And we know that, a recent article shows that 50% of women with metastatic breast cancer have been contacted by a debt collector because of their medical bills. So we try and eliminate those aspects that prevent women from getting the best care that they need. So it's really that comprehensive approach. And it's very exciting to see sort of as we have matured now, we are seeing our data show that these services are really utilized by women and they're really needed. I should say women and men. I always default to women, but we have men also. But those are critical services. And so what we're really trying to show is that not only does that help women live longer, I said it again, but live better. And so that's really our mission. And so, questions?
I think we can throw it open to some questions. If anyone in the crowd has a question, don't be shy. Yes, go right ahead.
Question for Patrick. Why is the DoD interested in breast cancer?
Well, there's a high rate of breast cancer in the military, higher than normal.
It was also a legislative trick to get funding for breast cancer through the DoD. It was a congressional legislation that sort of.
Kelly has sat on the DoD patient review, so.
It really is some fantastic research that they're funding. I've done it for 2 6-month periods in a row. And actually, IBRANCE was funded out of one of the DoD grants. So some of the discoveries there. Every year we have to go back and ask for the money, and that's what part of we do in the Stage 4 Stampede is actually to go and ask for that $130 some odd million a year. And then it's cool to kind of go back and be able to say, and here's how you need to spend it. So we consider it a privilege to do that, and we hope to continue to get the $130 million a year. We're going to ask for it for sure.
Yes, go ahead.
What's on the outlook as far as immunotherapy?
Good question. And timely. So immunotherapy is really an emerging treatment strategy for all cancers, really. because fundamentally cancer is a failure of your immune system to eradicate it at its early stage. So, so what we know is that cancers silence the immune system. They become invisible to the immune system, and the immune system leaves them alone. So now we have new drugs that can sort of block that silencing signal and reactivate the immune system to attack the cancer. So you've probably seen commercials for Keytruda, Opdivo. Had a lot of success in other cancer types, but we really hadn't until recently seen any meaningful impact on breast cancer. But I guess last month now in Munich, they presented the first phase 3 trial in triple negative breast cancer, showing that combining chemotherapy with an immune checkpoint inhibitor drug improved overall survival for women with triple negative breast cancer. So improved the survival to 25 months for their first line treatment, which actually exceeds what the current expected overall survival, given all the treatments that we've had available prior to this. So it's really a milestone for treatment of triple negative breast cancer. But it's just the beginning of immunotherapy. We're really in the first inning of the immunotherapy game.
Is that in the U.S. or is it still in trials in the EU?
No, that was a trial done in the U.S. It was just presented at a European conference in Munich. Yeah, so that drug is actually already on the market for other cancer types. So they're proceeding with trying to get it approved for breast cancer, for triple negative breast cancer.
Well, I think one thing that the Koontz Center is doing, and I'm sorry, and I'll let you get in, is the retreat that we offer for patients. And I thought maybe that would be something interesting if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about our patient retreat.
So last year we did, there's been a retreat for metastatic breast cancer patients occurring at Johns Hopkins University for a number of years. And last year we did a weekend retreat. We were the first institution other than Hopkins in the U.S. to do this. So a group of women and their partners went to a ranch out in Kansas, and some of you participated. And it's a weekend-long event to try and sort of process what's happening and on this metastatic breast cancer, and to just spend some time and really focus on what's important and how to get through this process. And having been out there last year, this year we've done 2 retreats. We did one earlier for people who may not have partners but have caregivers that are family members or whatever. And we're doing another one coming up here shortly. So I think it's for those who've had any contact with it whatsoever, and you can see the video on our webpage, it's a really very moving experience. And our team, the whole Koontz Center integrative team puts it on and does, and Janie Metzger coordinates it, our coordinator for the Koontz Center, and does an amazing job. It is just an awesome weekend. And it's forged groups. So the people who've gone there for the weekend have sort of formed their own collective group, and they keep meeting, and it's really amazing to see.
I think I answered one of the questions I had of the name METAvivor. Is that a combination metastatic survivor?
It is. Clever, huh?
Do you see any challenges with the recent midterm election and gaining your support?
No. The couple things, the two things that we asked for this year with that were both bipartisan bills, they should pass the House easily. There's no reason not to. The other thing is the last several years they have funded the minimum, and in last year's case they funded $3 billion worth of funding for overall cancer. This year they funded $2 billion. We didn't even get a chance to ask them to do that. They already funded it right before we got there. We were going to ask them at the Stage 4 stampede. So both parties, or in the independents, three parties, whatever, in there, they're all funding what needs to be funded right at the moment.
Cancer's not a partisan issue.
The only thing the healthcare is an issue. Of course, pre-existing conditions is the concern that a lot of people have. Currently, that's not on the chopping block. I suspect that there will be other shots at trying to eliminate that. But one of the things we're trying to get the Medicare down is so that becomes available immediately for somebody who has metastatic breast cancer. And so that's why it's so important. As my wife and I are going through doing Medicare for her right now and getting the supplemental insurance to cover all that. So, in another month or two, I'll be an expert on it. But right now, I'm going through the process myself.
I have a question. Do you know where you are as far as getting the Medicare time down from the 24 months waiting period?
We do not know. So there's actually two asks that we're doing. That was to get that down to the 24, and then also for Social Security disability to kick in immediately instead of waiting for 6 months, so that you'd be eligible immediately for that once you were diagnosed. But I do not know. We just went, that was October 9th through the 11th that I was in Washington, D.C. for the Stage 4 stampede, and they were just getting support for everybody. And I suspect all the elections were taking up their time, but it hopefully will be here within the next several months.
Okay, because I do know there are I work for Social Security, is why I know, there are certain illnesses that that there is no waiting period, like for ALS. Now, it's been that way for a long time.
Right.
How it got that way, I don't know, and what it takes to get that, I don't know.
Yeah, they have to pass a bill. It's the specific bill was the Metastatic Breast Cancer Access and Care Act. I don't know what the HR number is on that, but they should be addressing that to make it eligible. And I know that there's probably other cancers that also need to, there's some other cancers that need to also kick in that are worse than metastatic breast cancer, pancreatic, or, et cetera, that needs to kick in immediately instead of making people wait for 2 years to get that access and that care.
I just have a comment to make. Dr. Poulard mentioned the retreat, and I was fortunate enough to attend. It was very enlightening, and as he mentioned, we have formed a group, a very, very supportive group. In fact, last week, we actually went out to dinner, and we have plans of meeting every month. So I just want to thank Dr. Poulard, Janie, and the rest of the staff. I think I saw Jake also, for everything that they've done. And I would also like to thank the people who probably are not here that actually contributed to make sure that we were able to attend. So thank you.
Other questions?
Anyone else?
No? It's awfully quiet.
All right, well then, thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you to our wonderful panel. I invite all of you to have some food. We've got some sandwiches and snacks over here. Hang out, mingle. We do have the METAvivor RV parked one floor up, so great opportunity to get photos. Obviously, share them on your social media and with all of your friends. And we're just really thankful that you all came to join us today. So thank you very much.